Lee head tan, cold eye and collar, under the mud we crawl.
The shadow of a drone glides over the ruins of Megiddo, the same sun-scorched dust that once choked the lungs of Egyptian charioteers, Assyrian archers, and Roman legionnaires, proving that in this razor-thin strip of Levantine dirt, history does not merely repeat itself, it reverberates with the sound of changing calibers. We are standing upon the most contested real estate in human existence, a geological graveyard of empires where the soil is composed more of ancient blood and sacred prayer than minerals. Yet we rarely pause to ask why these specific coordinates became the obsession of every conqueror from Nebuchadnezzar to Napoleon. To understand the white-hot streak of an Iron Dome interceptor painting the midnight sky of 2026, you must first dismantle the psychological architecture of a people who were told 3,000 years ago that their survival was not a choice, but a divine mandate, creating a biological survival reflex so potent it has outlived every civilization that ever attempted to extinguish it. You have been sold the story of Israel in the sterilized fragments of Sunday school myths or 30-second news clips, but those are merely the faded paint on the walls of a much darker, much more complex fortress that we are about to deconstruct brick by brick to see how a Bronze Age promise was forged in the fires of exile to become a nuclear age reality. The American mind feels a strange primal pull toward the word Jerusalem, because it recognizes the city as the epicenter of the Western narrative, a place where the very concept of a linear future, the idea that history is heading toward a climax, was essentially invented. For the 35 to 50-year-old demographic, Israel represents the ultimate psychological mirror, the pioneer spirit, the desert reclaimed through sweat and high technology, and the creation of a fortress state against impossible odds, triggering a deep-seated fascination with the idea that a nation can be willed into existence through sheer ideological grit. We are drawn to this story because it validates our deepest modern fear and our greatest ancestral hope, that a culture can be utterly shattered, stripped of its geography for 2 millennia, and still return to claim its throne, serving as a psychological anchor in an increasingly unstable global landscape where the definition of home feels more fragile than ever. Yet every grand civilization begins with a man who was, by all accounts, a catastrophic failure in the eyes of his sophisticated Mesopotamian contemporaries, an aging nomad named Abraham who abandoned the urban security of Ur for a desert hallucination of greatness. Imagine the cynical whispers in the marketplace as this childless wanderer who owned no land and commanded no army claimed he heard a voice promising him a lineage as numerous as the stars. This was the first protagonist in a 3,000-year drama defined by a profound human flaw, a desperate, irrational faith that flew in the face of all physical evidence. This was not a hero in shining armor, but a terrified migrant who had to lie about his wife's identity in Egypt just to avoid a knife in the dark, proving that the foundation of the Israeli saga is built not on the porcelain perfection of saints, but on the messy, deceptive, and often brutal survival tactics of a man with everything to lose and only a whisper of a promise to hold on to. As we trace the jagged timeline to the year 1209 BCE, we encounter the Merneptah Stele, a massive granite slab where a pharaoh chillingly declared that Israel is wasted, its seed is no more, marking the first of a series of extinction events that would define the Hebrew psyche. Here lies the first of history's strangest patterns. Why is it that every time a global superpower declares the Jewish people extinct, the superpower eventually vanishes into the sand, while the extinct people reappear in the very next chapter of the history books? We see this anomaly again in 586 BCE, when the Babylonians scorched the first temple to ash and dragged the intelligentsia into chains, a moment that should have resulted in total cultural assimilation, as it did for the Carthaginians, the Hittites, and the Moabites. Yet instead of disappearing, the exiles did something psychologically unprecedented by codifying their identity into a portable book, ensuring that as long as the text survived, the nation was indestructible even without a single inch of territory. The pressure began to mount into a fever pitch during the late 19th century as the Dreyfus Affair in France, the supposed cradle of liberty, proved to a secular journalist named Theodor Herzl that even in an enlightened post-Enlightenment West, the Jewish body was never truly safe from the sudden eruption of ancient hatreds. This realization ignited a frantic, high-stakes race against the clock that culminated in the industrialization of death in the 1940s, an event that forced a scattered, traumatized people into a now-or-never gamble for a sliver of land that was already occupied and boiling with geopolitical tension. By 1948, the pressure was no longer metaphorical or theological. It was 5 professional Arab armies against a makeshift militia of Holocaust survivors and kibbutz farmers, a collision point where the accumulated weight of 3,000 years of persecution met the cold, ballistic reality of 20th century warfare, forcing an immediate psychological evolution from the lamb to the slaughter to the Lion of Judah in a matter of days. Today, that 1,000-year evolution is manifested in the Iron Dome, a billion-dollar canopy of algorithms and heat-seeking interceptors that protects a Silicon Valley economy built upon the same limestone hills where a young David once swung a shepherd's sling against a giant. We see a nation that has mastered the art of the impossible, turning salt flats into agricultural miracles and startups into global empires. Yet the moral and psychological ambiguity remains like a ghost in the machine. Has the fortress become so formidable that it has forgotten the nomad's inherent vulnerability? And can a nation ever truly find psychological peace when its entire existence is predicated on being an unbreakable, unblinking wall? We are left with the haunting realization that while Israel has conquered the desert, the sea, and the sky, the original struggle for legitimacy and security that began in 1200 BCE remains an open wound, leaving us to wonder if the price of eternal survival is an eternal conflict, a cycle that offers no comfortable answers, only a mirror into the darkest and most resilient corners of the human spirit. If you found yourself gripped by this high-stakes chess match of history and want to understand how these ancient patterns of power are currently dictating the future of our global economy and security, you belong here. The algorithms of the present are written in the ink of the past. Hit the subscribe button and activate notifications to join our community as we continue to retro-engineer the most powerful narratives ever told, ensuring that you never look at a map or the evening news with a surface-level perspective again. Subscribe now and help us uncover the hidden mechanics of history.